All right, now joining us on the guest line is a man who, if I got married this weekend, Ken Flo, and you'd be there too, he'd be in the goddamn wedding party, I think. Dear friend and colleague, and perhaps more saliently to this audience, the veteran voice of the Octagon, future UFC Hall of Famer, the venerable, the inimitable, Bruce Buffer is with us. My man, good morning.
I love it. I love it. The check's in the mail, John. Kenny, John, how are you, boys? Thanks for having me on the show. I know where to get my contacts, and I know who's going to do my PR. It's all good.
Hey, I am here for you, and man, were you here for us who are still football fans watching Football Night in America last night. Now, I knew this was going to happen. You and I had talked about it prior, and part of me wishes that I didn't know that you were going to be voicing over the introduction for Sunday Night Football, a game in which our beloved Patriots were involved. It's on your Instagram. I tweeted out a video today as well. Congrats on a really cool opportunity and bridging my UFC to NFL gap, something fierce, Buff. Pretty cool.
No, thanks, John. I really appreciate it. I guess it was a lot of MMA yesterday because even Conor McGregor was over at the Dallas game on the field with Jerry Jones, pushing his Proper 12 whiskey. MMA meets NFL. Sunday, baby. It was a real honor.
Connective tissue,
very much an honor. I actually was worried it didn't make the cut because it didn't come on for a second. Then when the mic came down, my whole family and I were like, yay. It was cool.
So cool. And again, you can see the 45-second video. It's up on social media channels. But so I think what's cool, too, is that people who listen to your podcast certainly know that you are a massive NFL football fan. You have action on a lot of the games on Sundays. So that had to be pretty cool when that shows up in the inbox that they want you to voice something like that for the National Football League.
Yeah, it was amazing. Basically NBC contacted me and, what an honor to do it. I mean, how can you turn something like that down? Even for the little payday you get, that's all great and fine and dandy. I'll be the first one to cash the check next Monday. But it's just the honor of being on it, and it's a bucket list, John. I had a Super Bowl commercial, now I had a voiceover on NBC. What's next, baby? 50-yard line? We'll see.
It was amazing. How did it get put together? First of all, timing is everything, man. It was an amazing game, but how did that get put together?
They contacted me on Wednesday, and it was like a rush job, needed to get it done. So I got in my studio. I did it on Thursday. My producer, TJ DeSantis, called me up, and we refined it on his end, got him the recordings on Friday. And then they said, yeah, they love it. They love the enthusiasm. They love the energy. Just can you get it down to 30 seconds, which we did, and the rest is history, as I waited. But like I said, I was sweating a few bullets because I mentioned to a few people that it was going to happen. Then I'm like, oh, my God, it's not going to happen. But then it happened. Kind of like waiting for me to do the 360 at UFC 100 if you were Joe Rogan. I was Joe Rogan at that moment.
Right.
Oh, having Buffer, Brady, and the Patriots was pretty special, man. Hey, listen, I want to circle back to last weekend with the whole Khabib and Conor thing. Where were you when it all went down, and what was your reaction?
Well, I was at my desk usually, which is the table right beside the entrance where the fighters walk into the octagon, and I was just getting the time card, the timing of the submission, everything down. Then I look up and all hell's breaking loose. So it was my normal reaction my entire life is that I always run into the fight. So I ran into the octagon, not to be, not to fight, of course. I mean, whatever happens. But at that point, you need to create a decorum. You need to be in there to create peace. And I noticed the commission was not dealing with it. Not they didn't deal with it well. They just couldn't control it. And then Metro's in there, and at one point Dana says he's got to get out, the one in the red shirt that jumped in and punched Conor. So I to the police, he's out. So they get him out. Dana comes in, giving Dana a ton of credit because this is not my first rodeo. That wasn't his first rodeo, but he knew immediately that if we put the belt on Khabib in the middle of the octagon, it was going to be bottles and can time. And lo and behold, he was correct, because if you notice when Khabib hit the tunnel, he got pummeled by beer and cups and everything. So Dana's whole thing was they have to both be out of here. Buff, you make the announcement. We can't have this inside. We've got to keep peace. Kenny, you've been involved in mixes. John, you've seen plenty. I have been involved in some horrific melees for non-UFC events and other sporting things. The tide can change in a second, and people do get hurt. Now, I'm very upset that this happened, a horrific way to end an amazingly perfect evening. It is not what we're all about. I know I said this before, John. Your commentary was magnificent, along with Dom and Joe. dictating the situation. But people and fans listening and watching, this is not what the UFC is about. Do not expect fights to break out at UFCs. This was a one-time situation that occurred. The last time this occurred was a long time, many, many, many years ago. Yeah. So it's one of those enigmas, and we have to get through it and move on.
It's interesting to hear your perspective. Bruce Buffer with us here on the ANIK and Florian podcast, because Kenny, Buff and I had a conversation before the show, as we often do, about, once Bruce does his main event announcement, his night is essentially done, right? He goes, enjoys the main event, and then they hand him a scorecard and he announces the score. But he has 7 seconds of work after his big moment, right? And then, of course, on a night like this, Bruce, you're sitting back in your seat. You could be drinking proper 12 whiskey, and the next thing you know, all hell breaks loose.
Right. It's one of those things you have to be, A, prepared for, B, you're not prepared for it, but anything can happen at any given time. It's like when I walk in a restaurant. My back is always against the wall, and I know where the exits are in case anything comes down. It's just the world in which we live, and quite frankly, that's how I'm going to be from now on, because look what happened last Saturday night. No call for it, no reason for it. The amazing cool cat in Khabib Nurmagomedov is now become the ultimate villain. It's amazing how things change overnight.
It is. And I like how you're talking about the back, facing the room, because if you've ever broken bread with Kenny Florian, that's his seat, okay? Ken Flo needs to have a look at the room just to make sure that if, hello, trouble, Tim Kennedy, right? If trouble's coming, Ken Flo has to have a view to take care of that trouble.
It's the right attitude. Listen, Wild Bill Hickok, he got shot from behind with a poker hand that was aces and eights. They call it the dead man's hand, and that's because he had his back facing the wall. Never have it. Kenny and I fight for seats every time we go out to dinner. There's only 2 of them against the wall. We're going for it.
This is true.
All right, Buff, last thing, I'll let you go on this. And again, I appreciate you hopping on to celebrate what was just a really cool night for you on Sunday. Daniel Cormier is stepping up here on short notice, and short notice would apply to Derek the Black Beast Lewis as well. This is the main event, Madison Square Garden, UFC 230. This is 19 days away. And I'm not sure how the betting line would be affected if both fighters had a full training camp, but you're a fan, you're following the daily headlines. What was your initial reaction when you saw that, it seemed like hours after Derek Lewis rallied against Alexander Volkov, his bout agreement for a title fight was signed?
Well, that final punch that he threw in that final second of the fight last week catapulted Derek to a higher level, financially, fan-wise, everything. The man is one of the most entertaining fighters out there. His interviews are just historically funny, as he proved the other evening. This is a very entertaining fight between 2 very entertaining people who actually can face each other, not talk curse words and smack talk to sell the fight, but sell the fight through the humor and the individual warriors that they are, as witnessed by a video they did recently and released the other day. I'm very much looking forward to this fight. Daniel Cormier has proven himself to be the GOAT, and he's working to be even more of a GOAT. He's now holding 2 belts, probably have to give up 1. He's fighting a beast. Cardio is going to be a big issue here. 19 days of training, have to be serious training on Derek's part. No screwing around, cardio. DC always finds ways to win, but he's dealing with a monster, and we'll see how he can toss him and move him.
And Buffer's cardio is going to be on point. UFC 230. We will see you at Madison Square Garden, New York City. And, hey, thanks again for punching that Brady take hard at the end there. I thought you nailed Tom the Goat Brady, and you nailed it, Buff. What can I say? You always do.
Well, thanks, but I also had a little emphasis and a little direction from a very close friend of mine named John Anik. So, John, thank you.
My man. Good job.
I punched it for you,
Good job,
baby.
Buff.
I punched it.
Hey, I love you. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon, all right, man?
You're the man, Bruce.
All right. Love you too, guys. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, John. See you, boys.